We're back, we're live, we're Think Tech. Today is the Think Tech Talks here on Monday afternoon at 2 o'clock. And we're talking with Sung Choi. We're talking about the Asia Pacific Clean Energy Islands and Isolated Communities Congress. We want to know everything about that. It's in Honolulu on September 9th through 11th, 2013, coming soon. Sung Choi, thank you so much for joining us today for this discussion.
Always good to see you.
So let's start with what is the Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit and Expo? What is that?
Okay, in 2009, we started this little summit conference information sessions where we wanted to bring our local community, local industry together with the Asia Pacific industries and community, as well as the U.S. mainland communities, and see if we can come up with unique solutions that are always going to be a problem for us when it comes to energy. And yeah, when we started in 2009, it was a DBED / university initiative where we brought in some very powerful people from Asia. They talked about electric buses that were going to be charged wirelessly from the ground, mobile harbors to alleviate some of the congestion that's been taking place at sea. And of course, you know, a lot of new ideas on solar, wind, ocean, whatever type of clean energy you want to think about.
But to put it in perspective, that was 1 year after the Clean Energy Initiative and agreement was made with Linda Lingle and Ted Lieu and Hawaiian Electric, and gee, that was fresh off the boat in the sense that
we were
fresh
off the boat,
starting to get started on the Clean Energy Initiative. So, and that was a big deal. I mean, everybody was excited because, you know why I remember they was excited? Because there were people here from all over the place. A lot of people from Asia, people from the mainland. You had the feeling, as a matter of fact, that it was really for them more than us because it was so expensive. It was like $600 or $700 to get in the door. And so you felt that whoever was setting this up was setting it up to draw traffic from the mainland, draw speakers from the mainland. It was organized by DBED, as I remember, primarily, and it involved an event planner which specialized in energy events like that from the mainland, Texas, I want to say.
Actually, you are right. The first one, 2009, it was run by Dennis Ling's department at DBED, and we did not have an outside consultant.
Oh, okay.
It's 2010, 11, 12, and now 13 that we've been working with CTSI. And they've actually brought in some very powerful speakers from the mainland that's federal government related, military related, and it's given us a lot of firepower as to the importance of clean energy in our state. I agree with you. I believe some of the costs are high, but if you ever get a chance to look at some of these technical conferences that are going around, $600 is not that bad.
Oh, I remember. I used to go to the mainland for programming conferences, you know, and back in the day, when programming just began, it was a sort of a community activity. Back in the 70s and the 80s, you know, to go to a conference was $300-400.
That's right.
It was cheap. Now you go, it's thousands, multiple
easily
thousands.
You know.
And really, it's no more useful today relative to the way it was useful then. Maybe the same, you know, and yet the price of it has gone up dramatically.
I think the price of it has gone up because of the amount of money it takes to organize one of these things. You have more and more people involved. I think in 2009 we were very fortunate because DBED had put in a lot of personnel and gave Dennis Ling and his crew pretty much carte blanche to have this thing go off very well. We had a lot of people from the university involved. And of course, and you're right, the biggest reason that took place was because of the 2008 Clean Energy Initiative.
Well, I'm just to capture that for a minute. You know, those were the days when the Clean Energy Initiative was really energized. Everybody, I mean, everybody was on the same page, and everybody wanted to charge ahead as fast as possible, and they wanted it all. They wanted everything right now. We can talk about how that's changed, but I guess what I'd like to talk about is how the Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit and Expo has changed over the years. I mean, from the point of view of the Summit and Expo.
You know, in the last couple of years, 2010, 2011, 2012, We brought in a lot of speakers from the mainland. We got to get a very good perspective about all the stuff that was going on with NREL and all the other agencies in the mainland.
NREL, please tell them what NREL.
National
Renewable
Energies Laboratory.
Okay.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I think it's right. With confidence now. National Renewable Energies Laboratory.
That's right.
NREL.
That's right.
Know that.
That's right. And they gave us a lot of good feedback as to all the stuff that we're doing here in Hawaii. And Hawaii is actually a very interesting and a unique location. And it's not because we happen to be in the middle of the Pacific and we have the best weather in the world. It's really because we have very many sources or resources of renewable energy. We know about the sun, we know about the wind, but we have all these ocean-related energies. We have, of course, our own little OTEC type stuff. We have geotech. We have our biofuels, and we have all these little energy pockets coming together. And of course, because of that, we can experiment with smart grid systems where multiple input sources can come into a little control unit and see how they can be dispersed to all the areas of necessity.
Even at night.
Even at night. And, it's actually important because, we talk about solar and wind, but solar and wind can be extremely limited. Like you go outside today, very little sun, very little wind so far, which means
so far. This is being broadcast on the day of Flossie, and Flossie is right around the corner.
Yeah.
So we hope we can finish the show.
Well, I'll tell you what, the state and city and county government agencies have all shut down at 2:30. So we're probably not that far away from being shut down.
We are the stalwarts.
Yeah, but when you have no sun and you have very little wind, those two sources of energy pretty much goes to zero. And if you think about energy as a need, a constant, continuous need, if I have my refrigerator and my aquarium and all the other good stuff at my house running, I want it to be running all the time. And if the power source drops, we have no run. So we always need some sort of a base energy. And, we've been using it through all our fossil fuel aspects because we just keep putting fossil fuel in and we get energy out. Obviously, if we would transform that to solar and wind, like today, hell, we wouldn't have that much energy. We'd be doing this in the dark.
Yeah.
But Hawaii's lucky. We have things like geotech and geothermal geotech. And then we also have things like ocean energy, which can be a foundation energy. We're always going to have some form of lava flow, and I think if you pour water on it, you get steam, right?
That's true.
Simple, basic science.
There you go.
You can run trains.
That's geotech, I suppose, right? Yeah.
So yeah, we live in a extremely conducive location. If you wanted to test or even try to launch a lot of these new clean energy technologies. Thus, this Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit and Expo came to being, where we wanted outside people, a lot of the mainland people and much more the Asia Pacific people, to come in and collaborate, as well as invest in all the technologies that we're trying to develop here in the state of Hawaii.
So they come to collaborate. They come to teach us what they know from wherever they know it. They come to invest in one way. I guess all those three things are all enmeshed together.
That's right.
But to bring them in is better than not to, because they have best practices that we need to have here. What I find interesting, and you can you can give me your thoughts about it, is that this is a very sophisticated conference. They're not trying to sell anything. They're trying to explain the science and explain the integration of all of these energy factors to make to take us to the next level of renewables. And what's interesting is that the people who come to the conference are the ones in the industry, who could make money, or in government who are responsible that the thing move ahead. But the public itself, the public in general, is not really in any significant form. It's the numbers at this conference. the public who, you know, complains about their electric bills, the public who says don't put the windmill near me, the public who says why do you give tax credits for the guy with the solar? I want mine too. That sort of thing. The public who would like everything to stay exactly what it was yesterday, except they don't want to pay. You know, that's a different crowd. That's a different strata. Those people are not at this clean energy. So, you know, it's like this is the frosting.
That's not necessarily true.
I want you to disagree with me. Go for it.
Okay. The reason I disagree with you on that is any conference or summit you hold is an information dissemination aspect, and the people that need it more than anybody else are the local public, and in my opinion, more so with the younger students. You know, if we talk about Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative by 2030, we are supposed to reduce it by, I believe, 60 or 70%. 70%.
70.
Yeah. And I believe majority of that reduction comes from real reductions, conservation. And conservation comes about liberally through education. If you and I walk outside and every time we walk out, we turn off the light to our room because we don't know how long we're going to be gone, that initial effect may not be that great. But if you were to accumulate that over a day, a week, a year, 10 years, that may be a significant number. And if you were to do that and starting multiples of 10, 100, 1,000, now that becomes a huge number. And I believe that initial aspect of the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative was conservation. So we need to educate people. A lot of these things are open to the public. They can come in and they can look at a couple of things. Yes, many of the things, the exhibits, the talks are limited to people that are paying for a registration fee. However, with high school kids, we've always invited like engineering academies, engineering and science clubs. Oh yes, free. And we have them go through our exhibits. We also have, like this year, a huge poster session. And I'm not sure how that's going to be run, but many of the
poster session?
Poster sessions would be researchers or industries that are working on really novel technologies. They can put out a poster like the old, you know, high school show and tell type stuff. And they can sit there and talk about their technologies, and in two ways, obviously. Number one, you're always trying to attract the investors, but at the same time, if a 10-year-old comes and asks you a question about this technology, you can always explain to them that it's equivalent to turning your light off every day, and you're saving that much energy. And who knows, maybe that guy will come up with the new source 20 years from now, and just by that one little education, he'll be turning off the light every day when he goes home. You know, there's a lot of aspects.
So I think it's good to have the kids come. I think it's good to have the press come. I mean, I want to come with my cameras here. And
Please do.
And I want to, you know, try to get the word out on what was said and what the status of the matter is. But it seems to me that if you get the kids in there, you know, kids are so interesting. Oh, you can quote me on that. We did a show a couple of years ago in the Hawaii Theater for Youth. I mean, it's the Honolulu Theater for Youth. And it was about sustainability. Hank Rogers, the Blue Planet Foundation, was a big sponsor. The city was a big sponsor. And it was trying to teach kids about sustainability and not to mess up the environment and so forth. And those kids, the kids were young kids, like less than 10 years old, a lot of them. They walked out of that place completely inculcated with the notion that this play was trying to deliver to them. You can't underestimate the fact that kids really like science. They like to learn about it, and they do change in, you know, their minds, and they do carry it forward, and they tell their parents and they tell their friends, and you are actually affecting public opinion by talking to kids. So the kid thing is really important. I hope you let them in free, right?
Oh yes, yes. You know, many schools have been in touch with us, and if you're interested, please go to our website. I believe there's some contact information there. You can let us know, and we will try to accommodate as many school groups as possible.
That's great.
We are here to educate. If we do not educate, all this stuff doesn't mean anything.
You're right. It's in a vacuum. And we're gonna take a short 1-minute vacuum now, in the way of a break. I'm with Sung Choi of the School of Engineering. He's the assistant dean there. We're talking, and he's also a progenitor of the Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit and Expo, which is taking place on August 9th, which is make that September 9th to 11th, 2013, at the Hawaii Convention Center. So we'll be right back after this break. We'll talk some more about exactly what this program is all about. Stay right there. We're back, we're live, we're at Think Tech. Think Tech Talks actually on a given Monday with Sung Choi, the Assistant Dean of the College of Engineering at UH Manoa. We're talking about something he's been directly involved in from the beginning. The Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit and Expo. It's the biggest, best, most total, it's plenary, man. It's it's the biggest, best energy program in Hawaii, and you know it's really a stunning demonstration of what we do in clean energy. It's at it's on Honolulu Hawaii Convention Center, September 9th through 11th this year, and we'll talk about the specific parts during the break. Sung Choi showed me the list of the speakers, and it blew my mind. I guess, can we jump to that, Sung Choi?
Sure.
You know, because one of these programs is defined. This is a very ambitious program. It's defined by the speakers, and I think you got it all here. You've got an amazing array of speakers. Let's go through them, okay?
Well, before we go through the speaker list, I think it's important if I go back one step and let everybody know that this is not just one conference or summit. This is a culmination of 3 conferences or summits coming together. And besides the Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit and Expo, which has been going on since 2009, we just recently created a thing called Islands and Isolated Communities Congress.
This is a separate conference. There are 3 separate conferences.
That's right.
This is one of them.
And they all kind of overlap because us being on an island, or maybe even a little oasis in a desert, isolated communities generally come up with very interesting and unique solutions because we don't have the luxury of having Idaho as a backyard.
It's a two-edged sword.
That's right, that's right. And because of that, we have to be very unique with our solutions. Maybe we can't take up a couple 100 acres to come up with our solutions. Maybe we have to look into the fact that we're going to get rain like we're doing today, and we're not going to have sunshine all the time. We have to look at all these different factors. And because of that, this Island and Isolated Communities Congress is very important. Unique solutions for unique locations like ours.
When you say islands and isolated communities, are you referring to the islands of this island chain, this state? Or are you referring to islands and isolated communities wherever they may be in the world?
Wherever they may be in the world. Okay, so for instance, we are an island, and obviously we have very unique solutions on how we do things. but we also have nice weather and all this other stuff. What about some place like Iceland and Greenland? They are an island, and they have another worry or concern they have, and their energy concern is to how do you keep places warm? We're concerned is how do you keep it cool? And you know, if you look at the back history of how Hawaiian homes have been built, they're built with very high ceilings, and we have windows generally facing the north where nice trade winds can go through, and we aren't as subjected to a lot of this other tropical areas where it can be really hot in Southeast Asia. So we're bringing all these island components in, and it can be from the north, the south, the central, doesn't matter. The other area is isolated communities, and they can be a little village within a forest, a little oasis in a desert. One place that comes to mind is Wuhan in China. Wuhan is in central China, and the last time I checked, there is nothing hundreds of miles around their city. So this is a city within the middle of nowhere, China, and their biggest concern, surprisingly, is energy, because they don't have fuel coming out of the ground, they don't have coal coming out of the ground, so they do the same thing we do. They import everything.
There's not a China-wide grid?
No. That'd be a lot of
It's
area
coming
to
soon,
cover.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll happen.
Soon, you know?
But
if they could build a national railway, you know, within 5 years, they can do a national grid.
oh,
too.
but you've been to China as often as I have, and the big highways, the big trains, they're all very sophisticated, but once you leave the main grid, it's still
rural China.
14th century China.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was actually very shocked. This is actually a funny, true story. We were on one of the highways in China. We were going south, and we come to some of these exits, and there are people on the highway waiting at the exits. So I was talking to one of my guys and said, you know, is that kind of dangerous to have people sitting on the highway? And I said, I don't see why they're here. There's so many other places they can be. And they said, well, they're here because once you get off the highway, there are no set roads. So if you want to get to a small town, you need a personal guide to take you there. Isn't that about as 14 So you take a left at the second creek and a right at the outhouse.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that interesting?
It's like a 500-year jump, you know.
So the difference between the major cities in China and the rural areas are exponential. And I think that creates this isolated community aspect. And we want to see how we can
very
come up with
valuable
this.
that you
That's
should
right.
talk about that.
That's
You
right.
know, but when I saw the title, and we titled the show originally "Islands and Isolated Communities Congress," I thought you might be referring, maybe you still are referring, to the phenomenon that I call insular drift. I've written about that because I believe, and it was sort of demonstrated in the whole affair with Big Wind and Molokai and Lanai and undersea cable, where the islands of our esteemed state would really like to be separate, and they don't want either ferry boats or undersea cables coming around, and they don't want anybody stealing their wind.
That's right.
And this is really not what you would expect in the 21st century. You'd expect that a state of islands would be no different than a state of Colorado, you know, and everyone shares. It's all one polity, so to speak, political entity. But that's not the case, and I was wondering if you're going to cover that issue, the concept of, you know, islands sharing, dealing with each other, helping each other, being part of the same collaborative organization in that panel.
Well, this is more towards the technological aspects. Obviously, those are social aspects that should be and can be explored.
You will cover, though, undersea cables, that
Oh,
kind
yes,
of thing.
of course.
And sharing
Undersea
among
cables,
different islands, you know.
of course.
I mean, there's so many countries in the world, with just a combination of thousands of islands. There's got to be a need for dealing with that.
Well, not only the ones with thousands of islands. You know, we still have places like Korea with a little island called Jeju. We have Japan with Okinawa. We have Singapore. You know, all these areas have unique problems, and because they are an island, they have to come up with these unique solutions. The deep ocean cable, that's actually a very interesting one. You know, I had taken now Senator Brian Schatz, when he was the lieutenant governor, to Japan and Korea, and we were looking at comparing what our island problems are and situations are with the ones in Japan and in Korea. And when we got to Jeju Island in Seoul, in Korea, they actually have a underwater cable. And we were talking about pricing, and they were telling us with the underwater cable, and of course Korea has nuclear power plants, their electricity ran about 10 cents a kilowatt hour, which is approximately where we want to try to get to. I think Washington State is maybe like 6 or 7 cents. I think it's one of the cheapest because of all the hydro energy they have.
But some of the neighbor islands are 40 and near 50 cents.
Or higher.
Yeah, or higher, thank you.
And this was the funny part. We asked Jeju Island, what happens if we cut that underwater cable because of a storm or whatever? And they said that their prices would rocket up to 50 cents a kilowatt hour. And we sat there and we said, wow, how much more similar can you get?
Yep.
And they told me that their power generation without the underwater cable is all gasoline and coal. So how similar is that to what we have? So all the islands seem to have very similar problems.
Yeah, that's similar to us, and we have a serious problem. And I hope you can do sort of a retrospective, because only 10 days ago, the PUC entered its famous 5 orders, and one of those orders, deleted from the RFP the notion of an undersea cable or big wind, on the neighbor island, Lanai and Molokai. And I mean, different people have a different interpretation, and some kindly people will think, oh, gee, that's just a little delay. They're going to make an investigative docket on these things, and they'll get around to it later. But my own perception of it is it's dead. Both of those things are dead, and those orders were entered more for political purposes than technological purposes. So I hope you cover that in this program, so that we can look back down the road and see if we made a mistake by deleting, the undersea cable, because that puts a damper on geothermal, right? What
Yes,
are you
it
going
does.
to do with all the geothermal on a big island if you can't get rid of it?
That's right.
You can't send it over by thunderbolts.
That's right.
I had a meeting with a guy who actually installed the undersea cable from Long Island to Connecticut some years ago.
Okay.
And in fact, he was with an organization that was trying to bid in for the undersea cable here. Told me it was no big deal. That these cables are all around the world. They're not a big deal, and yet for Hawaii, we think of it as some kind of huge obstacle. We have some sort of problem in confidence, self-image, to think that we can't do it. Of course we can do it. Anyway, so I hope you cover that in a way so that we can take a look back down the road.
Well, in my opinion, a good conference or a summit is one where you can have discussions about ideas that can be controversial, because you need to clear the air as to where the issues lie.
Yeah.
And in many cases, and I'm sure you many years being an attorney, you come to a realization that it's a misunderstanding that creates a problem, and not really a problem itself at all. And I think these type of things are trying to alleviate those type of different.
It's like a conference
That's
like
right.
this. Yeah, and I also think that you're establishing a kind of environment, an intellectual environment, where people can, check their biases at the door and come in and open their minds and find out, the real deal, and hopefully they don't come in just to, advocate a position. Or worse, to oppose a project based on what they learned. They come in to learn. They come in to have full understanding.
Yeah, I mean, these type of conferences are not about demonstrations or protests. These conferences are about exchange of ideas, and obviously, new ideas are one area that you need to cover. But the other area is you need to alleviate and rid of some of the issues that may have been a hindrance.
Right.
And if you
Dispel
can do
the
that,
myths.
that's right. And if you can do that, some of the ideas that were on the table 20 years ago may not be a big problem. I'll bring up one right now. That H-Power stuff where you're trying to burn waste and create electricity and power. I did a little bit of background research on this because I really didn't know that much. Obviously, this is like a 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old technology. Back then, though, the problem was you burn waste, you get a lot of toxic fumes. And you don't want toxic fumes in your neighborhood.
And your neighborhood doesn't want toxic fumes all over.
That's right.
They'll oppose you.
That's right. It's worse than having the electric lines going over your thing, right?
Yeah.
So I can see 50 years ago or 40 years ago where people were opposed to the fact that you are completely neglecting the human health aspects. Fast forward, we've come up with technologies now where they're catching all that bad air and they're converting it, and it's coming out to be clean air. Wow, that is not a bad solution now. If you can burn your waste, and this would be like Mr. Fusion in Back to the Future, right? Mm-hmm. Get your banana peels and your tin cans and throw it in, and you got a car that can go into the future and the past. Why not? If that's the way of the solution, that is great. Okay, and we need to obviously do a little bit more research to make sure that those claims are actually true.
But if they are, and we have the technology under control, we should A, improve the technology, and B, extend the use of the technology.
Yes.
And, talking about the extension of things, I'd like to extend a break right now.
Why not?
Sung-Choi and I are going to take a break. We'll take a 1-minute break. We're talking about the Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit and Expo, September 9th through 11th, and specifically the Islands and Isolated Community Congress. Sung-Choi and I will take a break, and we'll be right back after this message. We're back. We're live. We're Think Tech Talks on a given Monday, broadcasting on Ustream, on Spreaker.com, and you can get links for those and see those live at ThinkTechHawaii.com. We also post all our stuff on YouTube, and once in a while, very often actually, we play it on Olelo. So you can see it all over the place, and you will see it over and over again, I'm sure, between now and September. Isn't that a good thing?
That's great. Great advertisement.
So let me get it straight now. We have actually 3 conferences going. The primary conference is the Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit and Expo. And then the one we just discussed, the Islands and Isolated Communities Congress, which is Energy, Security, Business, and Sustainability. And the third one is the International OTEC Symposium. That's Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion, which is really important. And that's the third one. That's about a specific kind of clean energy. And why did you make that a separate conference just about one kind of energy?
Need to explain. Island and Iceland Community Congress was set up because we can encompass a lot of other issues. We're not only talking about energy now, we're talking about things like water, food, other aspects of island life that can be jeopardized because of its isolation. Now, the third one, OTEC. OTEC itself, Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion, is a huge subject matter throughout the world. And for us holding it together with these other two conferences makes it a much more attractive aspect. We want the people that are working on OTEC to understand that if they come to Hawaii, they will see the other aspects of renewable energies, that they don't have to only concentrate on that. Maybe some of the shortcomings they have with OTEC can be resolved by some of our other clean energy resources we have here.
I think it's a great idea to talk about OTEC, because OTEC is like, you know, the forgotten dream. And the problem, I mean, I think it's the developers themselves that are at fault in a way, because they haven't really moved that fast in terms of producing a, you know, a working model. Give me a city. Can you give me a city where OTEC is actually lighting it up? I don't think so.
I don't know of any.
You know, because a lot of guys are working on it and very enthusiastic about it. There's actually a fair amount of capital in it, but they haven't figured out the metallurgy yet.
No.
And they haven't figured out the exchanger so that it works over a long term. They can do it with cheap metals for a short time and expensive metals, well, for an unknown period of time. But they can't do it commercially, and that's the problem with OTEC, as far as I know. So I think it's a good thing that you are making a separate part of this as OTEC. But my next question is, why not do some of the other? Why not do ocean energy per se, ocean wave energy? Why not do geothermal energy? Why not do some of the also RANs? That's what we call them, as well.
The International OTEC Symposium here is something that's been going on. So we just partner. Yes,
as such.
We partner with them.
I got it.
The other ones that you've just mentioned are the ones that are being covered by the Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit, and we want them to actually grow like this OTEC Symposium. I think it'd be great if we had 4 or 5 symposiums with each of these specific aspects, and coming together under the Clean Energy Summit and the Island and Isolated Community Congress, because that would now culminate all the little problems that we're looking at. OTEC has actually taken a new life for energy now.
It's not a pun.
No, it's not a pun. You know, there's some investment now by some of our local firms, some of our bigger defense industries, and they're trying to revive the OTEC nature, and they're doing a lot of it down at the Hilo side, right? And of course, you know, the benefit is that they found out that it also produces a little bit of hydrogen, and hydrogen now is a huge source of energy, and we have our Hickam Air Force Base that uses hydrogen energy to power some of their buses.
Yep.
So there's all this stuff that's going on, and you know, like the hydrogen buses on Hickam, I can almost guarantee you 80% of the people in our state probably doesn't even know about them.
Right.
You know, these are all little experiments that take place. And the other one is, you know, which is really good, is the fact that you see a lot of Tesla S's running around. It's a lot of electric cars out there, and it's creating a huge synergy, if you want to call it. And, you know, I mean, these cars are very well advanced. I mean, these are nice cars.
Well, the new Tesla, well, the S is the sedan, which I think is like $70,000, maybe more.
Maybe more.
The Roadster is the one that used to be at 100,000.
120,000.
Now it's more.
Much lower.
Yeah.
I mean, you have more affordable ones like the Leaf, and I'm sure some of the other companies will be coming up with their own.
Yeah.
But you know, we're getting there. We're getting there.
We're getting there. But you know, it's like imagine a line of troops. You know, and some of the troops move faster than other troops. So it's not. It's kind of tumultuous. It's a war where you don't know exactly how your troops are moving and how fast, and you've got to sort of marshal them and evaluate them every day. And that's why a conference like this is so valuable, because we need to take very periodic snapshots and see how these players are doing, and only then will we begin, you know, to figure out what the solution is in terms of building the initiative that we need to have.
I mean, look at some of the speakers we have coming on this. I mean, we have government-related people. I mean, we have our own Neil Abercrombie, Brian Schatz, we have Mark Glick,
Rob
Richard
Young.
Lim, you know, and then we also have people from the military like Thomas Hicks, you know, and from people from the industry. Hank Rogers,
Look at that. Look
you
at
know,
that.
Clay
1 million of
Nestor.
them. And on both sides of the page, look at that. Look at
And
that.
we have millions of people coming in
How
to
does he
talk
get these
about
people?
this.
He must be good at making
Well, we've been
calls.
working on this for about a year ago, and we hope that as this success provides, we'll be able to start on another list for the following year, for 2014, and we're going to try and bring more and more international folks. We would love to see more people from Singapore who have very similar problems like we do. And you know, the other thing is, if you guys want to check this list out, go into any of your favorite search engine and type in Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit 2013. And you'll get to a web page and you can spend probably hours looking through the list, the program, the history. You know,
It's got something for everybody.
yes,
And
it's a
got
great
really-
way to educate yourself, even if it's on a very shallow basis to begin with. And then, of course, from there you can go into finding more details.
So who do we, you and me,
Mm-hmm.
want mostly to attend? I mean, we've talked about the
Mm-hmm.
students, but who's our Mr. Potato Man that we think ought to be the one who goes, who would most benefit by going, where the connection would be, obvious benefit for the state. Who is that person?
Well, one of the main objectives of a conference like this is to set up collaboration. So we need people that are in the universities, and that is one of the reasons why University of Hawaii and College of Engineering at UH Manoa are involved in this. We also want many of the industries that are involved in renewable energies to at least send a representative so they can talk about their technologies and all the stuff that they're doing.
Yeah. Put it all in the hopper.
Yeah,
Everything. Let's hear from everybody.
Investors as well.
Yeah.
You know, we want people like our own Hank Rogers, who runs Blue Planet Foundation, because he is very interested in trying to make Hawaii a less carbon dependent state. And I think we need to have these type of investments and dialogue to see if we can get out of this addiction, if you want to call it. I mean, we have a power addiction, right? Two addictions that I see that we have is sugar and power, right?
Well, we gotta save the money. I mean, it's gonna hurt the economy increasingly. As the price of oil goes up, our economy will go down. We'll be spending all our money on foreign oil. We won't have any money left for our own quality of life.
That's right.
So it's not just a static condition. It's a condition that changes. It's dynamic. As I always like to say, it's not plus ça change, plus la même anymore. It's just plus ça change. Everything is changing. And if you think you can get along the same way in the next 5 years, living on fossil fuel, you're going to find out the economy collapses from under you. So that's why this is really important. We have to get excited. Every man, woman, and child has to get excited about remaking Hawaii's energy system.
No, 100% correct. C'est la vie is not c'est la vie anymore. You have to be a part of it.
That's Sung Choi. He's part of it for sure. He's a progenitor of this huge conference. This is the biggest energy conference in the year, every year. The Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit and Expo, joined by the Islands and Isolated Communities Congress and the International OTEC, that's Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion Symposium, in the Hawaii Convention Center, September 9th. How can they sign up, Sung Choi?
Like I said, go to that webpage, go into any of your favorite search engine and type Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit 2013, and you'll get to this little page, and you can look up all the speakers, programs, the exhibitors, and there's of course a registration area as well.
Are you speaking in this program?
No, I'm just organizing.
Okay.
I
when you get
may
there,
be moderating a session, who knows.
when you get there, tell them Sung Choi sent you. Thank
They
you,
might
Dr.
give you a
Choi.
discount. Thanks.
You get a discount. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sung
Thank
Choi.
you.
We'll do this again.
Oh, bye.
Bye. This is Think Tech Talks on a given Monday afternoon, talking about the Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit and Expo. And we're going to stay right there because we have another program coming up in less than 5 minutes with Sung Choi again and Ted Ralston. We'll talk about drones. We'll continue the discussion that we had last Thursday at the Plaza Club, which was called Drones Over Hawaii. And we'll find it now more and more drones over Hawaii. Give us a few minutes. We'll be right back.
Thanks, Jay.
Okay. So, Ted.